On behalf of Aloha United Way, I just wanted to quickly say mahalo to the Bank of Hawaii Foundation. They graciously provided us with the vision and financial support to make this critical report available to our Hawaii State residents. The report is significant for several reasons, one of which is that it is one of the most cited reports across the state of Hawaii, and it continues to inform many of our community programs, initiatives, causes, and funding. So mahalo nui to the Bank of Hawaii Foundation for their kupua. Slide. All right. For those who don't know me, my name is Kimo Carvalho. I am Aloha United Way's Vice President of Community Impact. For those who don't know Aloha United Way, our mission involves convening and bringing together resources, organizations, community leaders, and people to advance the health, education, and financial stability of our Aloha Nui, including every person across our community. We are one of 4 United Ways across the state of Hawaii, and while we exclusively are charged with serving our Oahu constituents, our work in ALICE research does and continues to be a statewide effort. And Aloha United Way does coordinate with our neighbor island United Ways to share that research and the reports. And finally, this slide here shares what you will briefly be seeing today in our presentation. Again, it should be fairly quick, but just for caution, it will be rich with a heavy amount of data and information, but very useful and impactful, I believe. So we wanted to start by sharing with you just a quick history. As you may recall, Aloha United Way's Community Impact Department once operated an impact fund known as Poverty Prevention. We invested around $1 million a year in organizations that were focused on upstream services, which is mainly those above the federal poverty line. And like many other United Ways throughout the country, we had started to notice that there was a large group of residents who were financially impacted by the 2008 Great Recession. These were working professionals, yet they were struggling to make ends meet. They are, as we know, hardworking people we interact with every day. They have a job, often 2 or 3 actually, yet they could not afford basic necessities to remain stable and self-sufficient, but also did not qualify for government supports. This was the premise of Aloha United Way becoming one of the first of 12 partner states in 2016 that joined what we call United for ALICE. Since then, we have developed a methodology to produce an ALICE research report every other year. The 2017 report was based on the 2016 ACS American Community Survey data, and the 2020 report was based on the 2018 ACS data. Since then, we have released 3 additional ALICE in Focus reports based on that 2018 data. There has not been a report since then that has utilized data since pre-pandemic, which brings us to our next slide today and why we're here. So as mentioned, our usual ALICE research methodology is to use the ACS population data that's conducted by the US Census Bureau. However, there were data quality concerns with population estimates in 2020. For Hawaii, we knew the importance and the value of this study and the need for more current data. And we needed to better understand, of course, the aftermath of the pandemic as it related to the financial impact it had on our community. With that said, AUW made the executive decision to commission a locally produced survey that combined methodology practices between 3 credible entities. We partnered with Anthology, also known as Fin Partners, our United for ALICE partner, which is operated through United Way of Northern New Jersey, and the Financial Health Network, which nationally puts out the Pulse survey. This is one of the largest surveys of its kind in the state of Hawaii. Sample size was 2,391 individuals. These individuals willingly shared with us their financial situations and gave us a deeper dive into their financial lifestyles. It is not common to have a survey of more than 2,000 individuals that is not commissioned by government. And the benefits of having such a large sample size is that we have a higher level of confidence in the totals. Also the ability to review subsets of data with more confidence, such as the neighbor island county breakdowns, as well as the impact on specific ethnic groups. While this was a different methodology from previous ALICE reports, this mixed mode approach that involved both telephone and online surveys, it was based on industry best practices. The ALICE incidence was consistent in terms of our partners with United for ALICE. They were able to put together the ALICE percentages. Of all the 17 United for ALICE partners, Hawaii is the only state in the country that was able to produce this study in 2022. Finally, the added value of this report is that it includes comparisons to the Financial Health Pulse Survey of 2019, which was done just before the pandemic. And that would have been possible without census data alone. So it's a very unique study in that sense, brings together very unique partners, but nevertheless provides us with really a broad perspective of the population and what happened since the pandemic. There are three key terms I just want to make sure that we are all understanding before sharing our key findings. Mainly is the ALICE threshold, otherwise known as a household survival budget. This includes the bare minimum costs it takes to afford basic necessities, and that includes food, housing, childcare, transportation, etc. Often, this gets confused as the poverty line. That is not the case. Our United for ALICE partner usually adds a 10% buffer to the formula to build a cushion. For Hawaii, however, our research has consistently maintained that we do not add that 10%, so we are always communicating the true definition of household survival budget only. For Hawaii, excuse me, for Hawaii, the household survival budget for a single adult is $35,000, and for a household of four, it's $100,000. When we talk about individuals and families below the ALICE threshold, this really includes two subpopulations. The first of which are those below the federal poverty line, which for Hawaii, that information can be found on the Department of Health and Human Services annual poverty guidelines. The second are those between the federal poverty line and the ALICE threshold, which is where the ALICE population falls. A different way to say it is ALICE includes households above the federal poverty line, and below that, that's the household survival budget. And it's a pretty big group of people. Okay, we're going to go ahead and dive into the research. So the first set of key findings is really around the high-level findings of the ALICE population and those in poverty. So in 2018, the ACS and ALICE household data for the state of Hawaii had reflected that 42% of households throughout the state of Hawaii were below the ALICE threshold, otherwise known as the survival budget. This year in 2022, that number has increased to 44% of households below the ALICE threshold. Based on today's population, that estimates to be about 634,000 individuals in total struggling. When we break it down to those two subpopulations, ALICE and poverty, we see the ALICE population has actually decreased from 33% in 2018 to 29% in 2022. More noteworthy and somewhat disappointing is that many of those who were either already in ALICE or above the ALICE threshold in 2018 has now fallen below the federal poverty line, which is a 66% increase since 2018, unfortunately in the wrong direction. So you can see here in the graph that in 2018, the poverty rate was at 9%. Today in 2022, it's at 15%. So that's 1 in 7 households throughout the state of Hawaii with an income below the federal poverty line. And for Hawaii today, that equates to $15,630 for a single adult, or $31,920 for a household of 4, 2 of which are children. For Aloha United Way, we have been continuing to say and warning the public that all it takes is one significant event. And for Hawaii, from a population scale, that single event was COVID-19 that pushed people over the limit. Between the pandemic paired with the rising costs of living and inflation, more people are living in poverty in 2022 than during the Great Recession. And finally, while ALICE is a socioeconomic term that we do use to call attention to this community in need, we must remember that the data represents more than 200,000 people These are families, individuals, households, based on population estimates today. So this is the high-level findings. Not all groups were impacted equally. Those who identified as Native Hawaiian and Filipino and other ethnicities are more likely to be in ALICE or living below the federal poverty line. And just in case anyone's wondering, anyone who's self-identified as part or full Native Hawaiian is included within the Hawaiian category. And this is the only category where that does occur. For the other ethnicities, respondents were asked to select which one that they most identified with. As for percentages by county, Maui County saw the largest increase in poverty. Its poverty rate was 6% in 2018 and has since increased to 16% since then. The ALICE population for Maui County did remain the same, though, at 36% from 2018 through to 2022. For the neighbor islands, I was quickly able to pull the breakdown per county compared to 2018. For Kauai County, poverty in 2018 was at 10%, and ALICE was at 34%, respectively. Honolulu County, it was previously at 8% in 2018, and ALICE was at 32%. Hawaii County, in 2018, poverty was at 17% in 2018, and ALICE was at 31%. So Hawaii County had the least amount of change in comparison to other counties. At the same time, there was an increase in poverty rates across all counties and a decrease in ALICE and Honolulu and Hawaii counties, respectively. While there are people of all ages, races, and ethnicities struggling in every community, there are specific groups that face disproportionate impacts that does increase the likelihood of that household being below the ALICE threshold. So specifically, households below the ALICE threshold are more likely to be Native Hawaiians or Filipinos. They have children, live in a multi-generational or larger household, do not have a college degree or a trade certification, struggle paying taxes on time, have insufficient income, especially if your annual household income is less than $75,000, and we'll get to that in a second, and have inconsistent work opportunities such as multiple jobs. And just to share with everyone, there weren't too many surprises here. This research has been pretty consistent with previous years for the most part, but nevertheless, still worth calling out in this report. Finally, as it relates to employment, individuals with steady paychecks and income are 1.7 times more likely to be financially healthy than those with volatile incomes. As it relates to workers with multiple jobs, they're likely to be financially coping and are more vulnerable as opposed to those with one job. As expected, when someone is working multiple jobs, it's highly correlated to the high cost of living, particularly with costs of housing and childcare. Okay, so that wraps up the demographics and the population data. In this next section of the report, one of the significant outcomes of this study was the added partnership with the Financial Health Network. So the Financial Health Network provided us with this deeper level of financial insight into the ALICE population. And it was there's a strong level of confidence, of course, in the sample size. And it provides us to actually act and prevent further hardship based on these deeper financial insights. So for anyone wanting to look at the 2019 Financial Health Pulse Survey, we have included that on our website. Just go to the link within the ALICE page. When you look at the report, the Financial Health Network does break down their overall pulse score into 8 different indicators of financial health. But mainly what they're looking at is a household spending, saving, borrowing, and planning behaviors. For those who need access to our website, it's auw.org. You can search for the ALICE link, and that should take you to the list of reports, including the Financial Health Pulse Survey from 2019, if anyone wants to look at that. So as for our 2022 updates to the Financial Health Pulse Survey, we wanted to take a look, of course, at income and wages. We found that 84% of households below the ALICE threshold have a combined annual income of $75,000 or less. Now, this is significant because this is the equivalent to two full-time wage earners, both making $18 an hour. So this really is telling us this is the baseline. If you and your household are making $75,000 or less, the financial tools to mobilize you out of ALICE or out of poverty, those tools that we're deploying through a lot of our work is likely not going to work without a decent minimum wage. So this is the premise and argument, of course, for our recent advocacy efforts. It validates some of the work toward that new minimum wage. So this was part of this research study this year. In terms of debt, the study shows that more than 3 in 4 Hawaii households are carrying debt, and 1 in 3 below the ALICE threshold are owing more than what they can actually manage. It's also showing that 77% of the state has some form of debt. And what was of value here is that debt is often an early indicator of a downward spiral. In our line of work, it's often an opportunity to intervene with just a few resources to prevent hardship. But as maybe some of us know, without that prevention, debt usually leads to overdrafts. Overdrafts leads to collections. Collections leads to bad credit scores. That altogether leads to financial stress and various negative compounding impacts to one's social well-being and financial health. So we, really believe that this is an area to intervene. It was a new insight to our ALICE work and a deeper insight to the financial indicators that we were studying. In 2019, based on the Financial Health Survey, we saw that more Hawaii residents had sufficient savings to cover at minimum 3 months of living expenses than today. This 2022 study is showing, however, that for those below the ALICE threshold in particular, nearly half of those households would only be able to cover 2 months worth of expenses or less based on the money that they currently have available today. When we broke that down further, 1 in 4 of those households below the ALICE threshold would only actually have enough money to cover expenses for about 4 weeks. So what this is telling us is that Hawaii residents overall are lacking that financial cushion in the event of an emergency. Also, they don't have the resilience to face another economic downturn. And right now, the public conversation is around a potential recession lingering. Our worry, of course, is that more people currently either in the middle class or elsewhere might fall deeper either into ALICE or poverty, similar to what happened after the Great Recession. So resilience is not in our, based on this data, it's telling us that we need more resilience and more of a financial cushion. One of the questions we asked in the survey this year was if the respondents surveyed would be able to pay an unexpected $400 expense. Of those responses, those with the means to do so were more likely to withdraw cash or even put that expense on a credit card. Households below the ALICE threshold, however, they are significantly more likely to have had to pay for the expense over time. They're doing that either through credit cards or what we saw was borrowing money from family or friends or selling items for cash. When we, for those with debt, we assess how they currently cope with financial debt. Of those spending equal to or more than the income or more than their income in the last 12 months, over 2/3 are turning to savings. 78% are turning to savings. 75% are turning to credit cards to manage their financial situations. Based on past research from the Financial Health Survey, it's showing that these rates are higher since pre-pandemic. And finally, what caught our eye here, here in the middle section, you can see the higher rates of increase for behaviors for coping with financial stress. Specifically, more people are selling items for cash, borrowing money from family and friends, and overdrawing on their bank accounts. When just looking at something like borrowing money from family and friends, we knew from the 2019 Financial Health Network that Hawaii as a state was more likely to borrow. It's something that differentiated us from most other states throughout the nation. But what the Financial Health Network raised as a concern is that respondents, their level of reliance and supports from family and friends compounded with emergencies, it often triggers this domino effect where multiple families are at higher risk of being negatively impacted financially. So just, I think it was just one of those risk areas, and we're just seeing that increase here through our research. In terms of overdraw bank accounts, in the last slide, the table had shown that when spending outpaces income, 39% of Hawaii residents were more likely to overdraw on their bank accounts. Like we discussed with debt prevention, this can negatively enforce one's credit score. So today in 2022, the ALICE study reflects that 36% of those below the ALICE threshold already have lower credit scores with ratings of fair or poor. The high risk to high overdrafts and bad credit scores within a community with a housing crisis is that households with damaged credit are more likely to find it difficult to secure certain types of jobs, obtain a rental unit during their rental application and background check, or sometimes being able to turn on their utilities when starting their accounts with utility companies. Also, with low credit scores, it becomes an added financial barrier where a household is unable to obtain low-cost credit. So with higher credit rates, you pay more. Combine that with inflation, where cost of living is high, spending basically becomes out of control. And that becomes a big concern for those already struggling to make ends meet. So for credit, we know that good credit supports access to affordable rates. It's often used to verify employment, housing, access to basic services. And so this is also another area where we're interested in exploring further with our ALICE grantees and our clients. And to wrap up the financial data outcomes, when it comes to planning, what we found is that we as a system are not doing such a great job looking beyond immediate needs when it comes to long-term financial planning in particular and supports. So this study was showing that those below the ALICE threshold are significantly less likely to use basic financial services such as checking or savings accounts, credit, insurance, retirement accounts. And when you read the section of this report, a lot of it has to do with, of course, financial planning. When we think about financial education, we, there might be more opportunity to do a better job at more of that long-term planning beyond immediate stabilization. Basically instilling that confidence and giving specific direction, developing one's financial health and well-being over time. Often, a lot of our work turns to basic stabilization. We really do need to look at capacity building to serve clients more long-term. So that wraps up the financial data section of the ALICE 2022 study. This third and final set of key findings is more so related to the financial implications of the pandemic. And as mentioned, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this study was to see how the pandemic impacted households across the state of Hawaii. So this third set of findings helps us to accomplish that. What we found is that the three most common issues that continue to impact Hawaii overall are mental health challenges, difficulty paying off debts, and difficulty paying for housing. This table here shows the difficulty experienced before the pandemic on the left and persistent challenges on the right. What is most significant is that despite our community coming out of the pandemic, many of these challenges are persisting, particularly those for those who are below the ALICE threshold. And this is the second half of that table. It includes other indicators such as job loss, healthcare, education. The study also provides the percentage of households sampled that had gotten COVID. I'm sure if we were to have dug deeper into that, there likely may have been further financial impact given other financial indicators that we referenced earlier, but nevertheless, here's the raw data. And finally, by county, you can see the top lasting concerns of our Hawaii residents. What was most interesting here is that 1 in 4 people across the state of Hawaii continues to struggle with mental health challenges. Particularly as it relates to stress and anxiety regarding finances. For Honolulu and Big Island, mental health were the top lasting concerns post-pandemic. The reason mental health is significant is because a household is less likely to be successful in upward financial mobility when you have barriers such as depression, anxiety, and stress. And then finally, by county, when you look at the left column here, the only other outlier was Kauai County, where their lasting concern involved medical issues. And I'm not sure if anyone has been seeing the recent news where many residents have delayed medical care, which is beginning to cause capacity issues throughout the medical offices, hospitals, particularly on the neighbor islands. For Kauai County, we know that they have an older population, but I do imagine there is some correlation to the delayed healthcare there as well. Again, as mentioned in the previous slide, what is most significant is that despite our community coming out of the pandemic, what we're seeing in this 2022 ALICE study is that these challenges are persisting, particularly for those who are below the ALICE threshold. Okay, most recently, we continue to hear and therefore felt the need to reinforce the message of huliau, which in Aloha Hawaii can mean either a turning point, a time of change. It's often a word in our Native culture that inspires communities to create space, to have hard, critical conversations facing changes and challenges. While Aloha United Way does not have an ALICE policy package, we continue to bring together stakeholders around some important topics related to financial stability and savings. And we continue to build coalitions and networks and partner with a lot of stakeholders across the community to support ALICE policies that promotes economic mobility. We hope to find changes in Hawaii's safety net supports, specifically bridging programs that transition households from their current government entitlements through what we call the benefits cliff. Just to quickly illustrate an example of what the benefits cliff can look like, if I'm a single father with a 6-year-old child and my income is at that 30% area median income level, and I'm collecting SNAP, reduced school meals, housing assistance, if I were to receive just a 4% raise for working harder, which comes out to about $1,094 a year, this could mean losing possibly $6,840 in food assistance programs alone, just between DHS and DOE. This can be the case, of course, for many households our provider partners are working with. They are, of course, doing a fantastic job stabilizing households. But then afterward, there is still struggle to achieve economic mobility and move people up the ladder toward thriving futures based on this benefits cliff. So this is just one example of a conversation that we want to continue to facilitate based on what the research shares and provides us. In terms of solutions to ALICE, I personally believe it's in the name. In terms of being asset limited, you need more assets. And focusing on income and employment to really mobilize your financial health forward. Finally, ALICE is a systemic problem. It will require convening public and private sector partners. That includes community stakeholders. We hope to bring stakeholders together to have hard conversations about how to make Hawaii more affordable, how to help those in ALICE and poverty quickly increase their income so that they can achieve economic well-being. So the work moving forward involves everything from programs, policies, partnership developments. Regardless, this cannot be funder driven. It needs to be community driven. And so we encourage anyone throughout the community to provide your mana'o, your kukua, as we continue to convene and bring stakeholders together to really understand the ALICE population, the problems, and from there, how do we achieve economic mobility? As for our programs, for Hawaii, we have always been a test bed and at the forefront of innovation investments. We've demonstrated many big initiatives across various industries, such as clean energy, agriculture. We're starting to see a shift in support for regenerative tourism. For AUW, though, we are demonstrating solutions to mobilize the ALICE population toward economic well-being. Like other initiatives, it starts, though, with the private sector investments in innovation, with the goal to have government adopt and scale solutions that really supports and impacts everyone throughout our locally. With that said, AEW has partnered with Hawaii Community Foundation. We are investing $1.5 million per year starting in 2022 to support 17 nonprofit organizations, which are listed here. They are identifying ALICE households that are above that federal poverty line. They are looking to identify what financial indicators, credit, savings, household income, expenses are necessary to assess. And they are designing solutions that demonstrates how to mobilize a household toward economic well-being so that they're no longer in crisis and they can pursue a thriving future. My hope is that their program demonstrations, it helps to inform our policies, our capacity building opportunities, system change initiatives, program investments. And the hope is that these private sector innovations do result in wide-scale government supports once we have proof of concept. Okay, and finally, ALICE. It is a story that should be personal to all of us because ALICE is us. ALICE are our coworkers, they are our childcare providers, our neighbors, our friends, our family. They are our community right now. We at Aloha United Way are in this for the long haul. ALICE continues to being a rally point for us to shape the future that we hope to see for our state of Hawaii. We hope that you will join us in learning more about the ALICE initiative and our research, support our advocacy and programmatic work, and help us to sustain our culture and protecting what makes this place that we all call home so special and unique. You can find more information online at aew.org and the link to the ALICE page where you'll be able to find the research studies of this PowerPoint presentation and learning more about the work that we are invested in to serve our community in both ALICE and in poverty.